So my name is George Riley. I'm head of the Public Water Now campaign. You all know we have an issue on the November ballot. But Public Water Now is largely focused on two issues. The high cost of water, which ought to be moderated, and we think public ownership is the way to do that. And we want fairness for the ratepayer. And we think public ownership is the right way to make that happen. We also believe in democracy and politics that take place around that, but also it's democratic politics where local elected officials run. They're accountable locally, they're located locally, they live here locally, they live and die within their own community, and you know who they are. Unlike a corporation, which is somewhere off-site, rates are set somewhere else in San Francisco, it's a legal process, not a public process. And there's so many ways that the corporate structure around water is what is the problem here. It's not the water, it's not the access, maybe it's the cost of water, but it's the structure we're fighting. We think the local control, local government, local accountability are the principles that we ought to have in running our water. Water is local. It doesn't come from somewhere else, it comes local. So water is local. Anytime you have a landlord, I call him a landlord, a non-resident manager of your water system, you're going to have a problem. What we're saying is 87% of the United States get their water from public agencies. There's got to be a reason. We want to join, we want to make it 88%, or whatever that number might be. Maybe we won't even move the needle. Doesn't matter. We want to be part of the majority. There's a reason why these public agencies are the dominant provider of water. There's a reason. It's a public trust, it's a public resource, it's a public issue. It should not be in private hands, it should not be based on profit. That's what we're against, and that's what we're trying to promote with our November ballot. So what we have tonight is another agency that has successfully negotiated the politics, the costs, the public sentiment, and the decision structure to take water back from a corporate ownership to local control. Montara Water and Sanitation District is an organization, you'll hear more about that. But I just want to give you a couple of things that are going on. I don't know how many of you saw this. This is a handout from Cal-Am. Is Cal-Am in the audience? Because I asked them to come in, but I don't know if they did. You know, they're surely welcome. We have no secrets. But anyway, my little interaction when I got one of these said, "Oh, may I get one?" Yes. So it says case study Montara, and I said, "Well, what is this?" He said, "These are the facts on Montara." So I said, "Your facts." I said, "My guess there are going to be different facts tonight." And he goes like this. It's getting better as a speaker. So anyway, we're going to hear more. I just want you to know, and those of you who are a little sympathetic with our cause, and those of you who may not be so sympathetic, or not sure yet, but we think you will be soon. This is the stuff we're getting from Cal-Am. Big slick flyers. They're averaging about one every 2 weeks. They're canned things. They say how wonderful we are. Look for a fact. I want to ask you, look for a fact in any of their material. There may be a few facts.
Big question on that one.
But
Who's growing the river in the first place?
But we think Cal-Am has caused more problems on the peninsula than they have solved. We do believe that it's the structure, it's not the people. So we think the priority that Cal-Am gives to whatever they're doing, and this is a corporate monopoly, is to their shareholders. We know that. But does the community know that? And does the community care? We're not sure. But that's the purpose of the campaign. And we are on an effort to keep informing people in public and in dialogue and Q&A. We will have more mailers of our own to you, not nearly as many as Cal-Am, and not nearly as fancy as Cal-Am. But we will do what we can. We're still raising money so that's an issue for all of us. We're still recruiting volunteers, and we're still asking for people who are willing to give their name to us, so we might put an ad in the paper so on, just list all the names of people who support this. And so if you've had a chance to sign up at all, I hope you consider it. We will probably pass the hat tonight. But also there's an auction coming up. We've got one scheduled for September the 7th, I think it's Saturday night? Friday night. And so there'll be more news about that. And I hope you might consider helping that too. But it takes money, it takes volunteers, and it takes a gut commitment. And I guess that's what I'm really trying to appeal more than anything else. Do you feel like this is right? Do you feel like it's time? Do you feel like you've had enough of Callahan? Do you feel like we need a change? Do you feel like now's the time? If you do, you'll be with us. And whether you do anything else, we hope you can vote yes for the ballot. We didn't know what the number is yet, the letter. But, and I know there's some elected officials here tonight. I want to welcome them, but I'm not going to call them out. But appreciate seeing you. Tonight we have Montara representatives. They're going to tell you their story. And where's my notes? So Jim Harvey has been on the board for, don't let me count the years, 4 terms or so, 3 terms, 4 terms. Long time, but he's here, he's been on the board for a long time. And his partner tonight is Kathryn Slater-Carter. She was on the board when the conversion took place. So they have their own story to tell and why they did it and how successful or how it worked and what their problems were, but what they had to overcome, but what they did. What we're trying to do is make sure that we have the opportunity, or you have the opportunity, to hear the story from the people that were personally involved in the story, and not based on the loser's writing of history. That's what Callahan is doing. They lost in Montara. They did the same thing recently when Felton was down here. They're writing their own version of history. It's sour grapes, they lost, and they can't forget it. Well, good. We don't want to forget it either, because they lost. We think we have another opportunity to create history that way. So let me ask Jim Harvey to come up, and I don't know how you want to do the tag team in order. We're going to have presentations. We're going to have Q&A a little bit later, so make a note, and we will try to do a little dialogue as we go forward. So Jim, sure.
So it says, please keep your mouth 10 to 12 inches away from the one. Okay. So, Jim Harvey, live in Montara. I was on the board when we did the buyout. And I just got this 10 minutes ago. Someone handed it to me. So Kathryn will address this, and all these things are wrong. They're all lies. Every one of these things is wrong. I won't go to that in detail. Kathryn will talk about that if you're interested. So I was on the board. I've been on there for 3 terms and 3 terms, and I'm being running for re-election. I moved to Montara 35 years ago, and the first thing I noticed was our water rates are the highest, probably the highest in the peninsula, and maybe the highest in California. And then I'm looking at the water quality, and sometimes it's brown, and sometimes it goes off. And the state mandated a moratorium for our water district because we were leaking 40% of the water into the ground. And I'm thinking, God, we have the highest rates and we're leaking water and it's not drinkable. We had to have a pure filter put on the thing. So what's wrong here? And then I noticed another thing that happened, and that is that every 2 years, Callahan would ask for a rate increase. They'd go to PUC and ask for a rate increase. PUC would hear Callahan, we would go and listen to this, and they said, okay, we'll give you the rate increase as long as you improve the district, replace pipes, make things better, fix the pumps. So Callahan would give them the rate increase, and then, PUC would give them the rate increase, and Callahan wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't fix the pumps, they wouldn't replace the pipes. So PUC is giving them the rate increases on the condition that they improve the district or the piping and the infrastructure, but CalAm, or citizens before CalAm, wasn't doing anything. And then 2 years later, CalAm or citizens would ask for another rate increase. And they said, we want this rate increase so we can replace mains and pumps. So CalAm would give them another rate increase. Oh, great, okay, good. So I would promise that they would improve the system. Again, nothing was done. This happened 3 times. The PUC would give them 3 rate increases, and CalAm would, citizens before, would do nothing and make no improvement. So I, with Gary Warhaftig, co-founded an organization called the Montara Water Improvement Association, MIBWA, which is the equivalent of the organization we have now that George is involved with. And we went to the PUC meetings and protested. We protested to citizens, and then bought out by RWE, the German company, Thames, and these changes. And we protested, and we said, this is not right. We can't keep increasing the rates. And our rates were going up like this. Our rates were going up like this. Why can't they kind of go like this? And instead of paying corporate profits, why can't the money that we're paying go directly into improving the district and replacing pipes? Instead of when you call for some problem, you end up in Indiana or someplace. Why can't we call the Montara and have some local person or someone who lives here locally take care of the problem? Why do we have to wait for some truck to come from Sacramento? And why pay for these executive fees for the CEOs and so forth? And we just had to. So we got involved in talking to the people. We sent out flyers. We went to PUC meetings. We got a political person to help us, Quentin Kopp, who was a state senator at that time, leading the state senate, was a judge. And he helped us, and he didn't live in Montara, but he thought, you guys are worthy people, you need to get out of this corporate bond. And he helped us and came, and he passed. We were a sanitary district, a sewer district, and he got through the state legislature, which Governor Majan signed, a bill that specifically gave us water powers. And once we had water powers, we went door to door, Xerox flyers, and then we had a vote, an initiative to buy out CalAm, and it passed by 83%. It seemed the people who, my personal opinion, it seemed the people who were against the buyout were people who were corporate people who felt that the corporations should run things, that public ownership is wrong, the corporation should be in charge. And so the 18% that was against it, we're outvoted, and then we started the buyout process. And I'll let Kathryn step in at this moment and the actual buyout process, and we'll trade back and forth. And again, make sure you hang on to this.
Thank you. I will say I came all calm and ready to address you in a very rational manner. And then I read this. Anybody who has any spare copies that they'd like to leave me, I would like to distribute them in Montara, because I believe many of the people who supported our buyout and still support it would find this amazing. I will tell you, there's conflation, there's wrong-headed short-term analysis, there's hyperbole, and those are all just parts of all the lies that are in this sheet. Lies. Starting with case study Montara, I won't bore you with the details. No, we did not lower water rates. We never promised to. What we told people was that we were going to be spending the money from the rates to fix the system. As Jim said, we had 40% leakage rates. When you replace the pipes using that profit money, because we knew what it would cost to run the district, we couldn't reduce the staff, they couldn't have gotten any lower. And you have the same power bills, no matter who owns it. All of those things, we knew we couldn't reduce the rates. But we could take the money that was going to the profits to the stockholders and spend it on fixing the system. And so we could lower the rate increases. So by reducing the leakage, we didn't have to pay for pumping and distributing water that was just going into the ground and creating mucky wetlands. By bringing our service staff, our office staff local, so people could come in and talk about their bills to a person who knew and understood the area. And when they said, oh, I'm in Montara and there's a leak on East Street, we could send our crew to it instead of waiting for a week and having people pay for that. That's what we did, but we knew we couldn't reduce rates, but we drastically reduced the rate of increase. Our residents knew when they voted, and we did this with property taxes. You guys won't have to. This is a major advantage that your organization and your effort has. We didn't have that ability. We only had 1,600 ratepayers, 5,000 people, who, as Jim said, passed a $19 million bond. We did not, our costs have gone down. We didn't project costs in 2002. Somewhere in my basement where I have a jillion papers, I have our papers and that we handed out. Now I have the incentive to go through and find them. It talks about the newspaper. Montara has been and Moss Beach has been a very politically active community. Prior to the water system takeover, we worked with people to get a countywide vote to stop a major tunnel from going through our community and a freeway. And so we had a lot of activists, like you guys have built an activist group for this effort. And so the newspaper had always supported the freeway, and the folks in Montara didn't. When we got the tunnel instead of the freeway, the paper didn't like us any more than it had before. Remember, papers have agendas to sell papers. Activists have an agenda to protect your community, and they're two different things. In the bottom, it shows these cute little charts. I want to thank them for them. CalM is the gifter that keeps on giving even 15, 20 years later. If you look at the Montara projected versus reality, they have conflated the property taxes with the rate increases. And if you look closely, the CalM projected rates in 2008 are higher than our rates are today. Their actual in 2001 were only slightly lower than ours were in 2008 with 3% inflation or a rate adjustment every year. So we were actually doing better. If you turn over to the back side without the charts, we may have paid attorney's fees. If CalM had been willing to work with us, we wouldn't have had to. But putting that aside, yes, we are a small unincorporated city. There was no prolonged discussion about our board. We were always unanimous and instantly unanimous. We never told the public what a takeover would cost. We did pay $17.5 million in bonds to pay for the system and to improve to redo the improvements. And yes, that was paid for by property taxes. We now have water pressure in our fire hydrants. Can you imagine? Who would think you need water in your fire hydrants? Cal-Am didn't. Let me read you from our website. You're welcome to go to it. It is mwsd.montara.org. Oops, and I just... the district has worked consistently to decrease costs, and this is how public ownership of your district will decrease costs. We saved $1 million by rejecting the first rounds of bids to build a water tank. Now that sounds like, oh, you rebuilt a water tank. No, we didn't have adequate water storage to fight fires when we bought this from Cal-Am. We saved $1 million by building it ourselves, and I don't know what kind of profit margin Cal-Am would have put on a $3 million tank. But we'd be paying for that through Cal-Am's rates forever. Successfully obtained a 2.3% low interest rate loan to help fund the new storage tank. Eliminated the need for a new $1.5 million, eliminated a $1.5 million expenditure. Cal-Am's incentive is to spend it and charge you profits on it.
Yes.
So you need your own ownership. Took advantage of low interest rates to refinance prior debt. And we have long-range planning. We work with Coastal Commission. We have a long-range water plan. We have adequate water supplies to take us through build-out with 100% reserve. But we did that because we are publicly owned and people in our community pay attention to us. Our meetings are televised. People come up to us, we go to the post office, we're small. We come up to us at the post office and say, well, I don't really think we needed that. And we go, okay, tell me your story. Tell us what's going on. We'll take it into account. We are not a huge corporation that goes, yeah, call New Jersey. So I want to thank Cal-Am for giving us this. I think it is an excellent case, and everybody should realize this. Whatever Cal-Am sends out to you is probably not true. It's either conflated or inflated or just basically lying to you, and they don't expect you to have the wherewithal to go and find the real facts. And I suggest that everyone in this audience do that. When they send you something, do some quick fact checking. You would be surprised at how this just gets moved around. All in all, my humble opinion of our water district buyout is an unqualified success. Everything George said at the beginning is what we ran our campaign on, what we run our district on. It is what we as board members and as community members not only believe in, but act on. It's very, very important. It was expensive. $11 million is what we paid of a $19 million bond. Cal-Am, RWE, the German company at that point in time at Cal-Am was their California agency, came to us and said, well, you just passed a $19 million bond. I think that's what you should pay. And I said, the condition of your water system will require $19 million worth of repairs. You owe us money to take this liability off your hands. And then we started talking. And we ended up settling at $11 million. The attorney's fees were expensive, particularly for a little district like ours that served 1,600 connections at the time. But we had the support. People knew what they were buying into. I think what you are doing here is really important. I would suggest for those of you who are active, I give you my total respect and admiration. You have not taken on an easy adversary. as you can see, they will lie. Just on one little piece of paper, this many lies. It's amazing. They will cheat. They will send out flyers to everyone with all of their wonderful things about how they helped this and did that. I've been a close observer of large corporations for a lot of years. Generally, they pay a lot of money to PR agencies to cover up their tracks. You guys know what the truth is. And you guys can get this initiative, is it? Get this study passed and keep an eye on your water. We had, as Jim said, we had a state moratorium on new water connections and promises and promises and promises by the investor-owned utility. They were going nowhere. And we couldn't see, even with the change in ownership, of any possibility of any of that changing. We were, again, our board was unanimous and never even questioned. Our attitude was, the worst thing that can happen is we will fail. But that leaves us in the same situation we are now. We can make things improve. We had, and you won't have a bond, but we had a 30-year bond. It's 15 years old, so we have 15 years left. Had we not succeeded, Cal-Am's egregious water rate increases would have gone on forever. Forever. There's no end to their callous disregard for what it takes to live somewhere. And water, as Mark Twain said, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. You guys have picked a big fight, but you can win it. You have the talent. You have the skills. I'm really impressed. Our bond will be over in 15 years, and instead of having our water rates go like this, our water rates have been going like this. And I apologize for not having numbers. I will be happy to dig those numbers out, get my district to produce them and send them so that you can put them on your website. I believe this piece from Cal-Am deserves a serious response. And so we, like I said, we had the support of the community. People had been in the community for a long time. Everyone had their stories, not only about the rates, but about the lack of water and those kinds of things, about the leaks, about trying to get response from New Jersey. And so we had the support. I don't think Cal-Am figured that a little district with 1,600 districts, with 1,600 connections, could really figure out how to do this. The brains in your community, your gumption, your creative thinking, your willingness to work to gather 11,000 signatures on this petition is awesome. They can send out mailers, they can spend a lot of money, they can't come close to your passion and your information. And they were nasty. When I was president, when we signed the deeds on that day, a fellow board member, still on the board, from 2003, was in their local office. They were trying to take all the computers, all the financial records. They were working on getting the staff to quit and leave us. The staff knew us. Some lived in town. They all came the next day and reported to work at the water district, at the sanitary district. We had a flawless transition because they knew what was at stake. Some of them lived there, and even the ones who drove to work there understood what it meant for local water and local control. One of the staff is now our general manager of our water and sanitary district. So this is, we had the allegiance and the loyalty of the staff, and to that I am eternally grateful. That's how this works, from the people doing it, from the people getting out and talking. I'm more than happy to answer lots of questions. For us, you guys are starting from a good point in that you already have a water district to talk to. You're way ahead of where we were. So I know you guys can make this happen. And Jim, do we have, what did I forget? I know I forgot something. I got so mad.
I just want to make a couple of comments. This is dear to us because we went through Felton and helped them. You know, as a public water agency, you get grants. You can apply for grants. You can apply for state interest rates. You get a lot of advantage to being a public interest rates. Now, corporations. I'm all for corporations. My retirement system and my investments depend on some extent to the stock market. I love corporations. But you know something? Corporations shouldn't run public water agencies. This is water for my grandchildren, for your children. It should be the public. You should be the owners. You should have board members who decide what should be fixed and having. And then the final thing is, you know, this was given to us by George. You know, so I mean, you have a copy of this profit 14 million. Well, there's no profit in Montara. There's no water profit. That goes back to replacing mains, replacing pumps, non-local operations. So we don't pay for what happens in New Jersey or Indiana. We pay for only what happens in our district. We make the decisions. We have elections, so we make the decisions. Corporate taxes. We don't have any corporate taxes. I mean, it's an obvious thing to do to fight, and it's going to be expensive. It's going to cost you. It's going to be painful. But you know something. In the long run, you'll be way ahead. 10 years from now, you'll look back and say, "What the hell were we doing?" Okay.
Is this working?
Questions, don't leave me.
I would like you to go back, if you can recall, and what the dynamics were around the actual cost of acquisition. Where did you start? Where was the opposition? How did you reach a number?
They started with our full bond, $19 million. I started with, they owe us money. We were fortunate in timing, accidentally, to be real honest. It wasn't planning, but circumstances were such as they were. And the California PUC, as a condition on stock transfer between CalAm and RWE or American Water, whoever it was, put the condition on, because we had no water in our fire lines, because we had so many leaks, because we had such low quality water. And let me interject that our water was in a taste test last year, and we were number 5 out of all the water samples in the state. Our water was virtually undrinkable under CalAm.
And our leak rate is now, went from 40% to 2%.
And we had some fabulous attorneys, and so we filed eminent domain. With the order from the PUC staff, which the PUC commission watered down quite a bit, but nonetheless they kept some of it. We then went into the legal process and ended up in mediation, because generally, before a lawsuit, judges like the opposing parties to go into mediation. With that, we ended up, the mediator suggested $11 million, and we knew what the court costs of going through eminent domain would be. Finding your expert witnesses and all of this kind of thing can be very expensive. So we settled at $11 million. We figured we penciled it out and we could make it work.
A clarification on rates, just to make sure I heard what you were saying. Rates are not likely to go down, but they will significantly lower the rate of increase over time.
That's what we told our public.
So that at some point in the future, it would effectively be lower than if we left it as it is.
Actually, it wasn't at some point in the future. It was the next month. We have an approximate 3% increase in rates for cost of living. Their rates were going like this. Our rates are going like this. I mean, and this thing that Kathryn held up, again, every statement in there is a lie.
Well, except for their chart, which shows that the CalAm projected rates in 2008 were $112.13 for the average household, and Montara today, 10 years later, sorry, is $98.34. Now, figure that. That's why I said they added they conflated numbers, they added the property taxes on top of that. I thank them for making them a different color. Property taxes, our bond will be paid off.
And everything right now.
And then people won't have to pay it, but they will continue for the life of the district, the life of the community, to save money on water rates.
And I can tell you something else, that the value of our homes definitely increased. Looking at real estate, the values of our home increases, because when people come in, oh, you're paying these super high rates, I'm not sure I want to buy here. Or, and people, now it's a positive for our district that we have publicly owned. It's a positive thing.